Indie Beacon Radio with hostess Shanalee Sharboneau. Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Good evening, y'all. This is Shanalee Sharboneau, your host this evening for Indie Beacon Radio. Tonight, we have an incredible author that's very interesting, one who is very focused on Texas history. I appreciate this. His name is James Valentino. James, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to get to, it's funny that we're having this interview because we just got done with the Texas history test for my son. And boy, after talking to you, it was so helpful to learn more about what was going on during the time of the book that you just recently published, The Life and the Letters of Lucy Parker Shaw. And so let's kind of start with you and learn about how you've gotten into history and such. So introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, my name is James Valentino, and probably always had an interest in history in some form or fashion. When I was a little elementary school kid, I read all the history books in our library, and for some reason, who knows why, I guess I was just attracted to dead people. I don't know. But then I went into other businesses and stuff most of my life. And so later on, my wife was making enough money to support me for a while. So I decided to go back, get my bachelor's degree. Then I got my master's degree in American history. And that's kind of my story. I guess I've always been a little bit fascinated by people who lived in the past.
Yeah, so you sound like a kid that spent a lot of time in libraries. How did you run across Lucy Parker Shaw? How did that occur?
Yes, I was doing some other research on something for school when I was trying to get my master's degree, just bumming around in Rosenberg Library, and just happenstance ran across these letters, asked for them, started reading them, became fascinated a little bit as to who she was and where she was and who the other people are. I didn't recognize all of the historical figures she was mentioning. So I started running them down. Later on, I just did some more research and found out that another historian had looked into them years earlier. And so I decided to just copy the letters so I could go over them at my leisure. Did not know what to do with them. So eventually I decided, why not just try to publish them? They're interesting enough. They stand on their own, and they tell an interesting story. They tell a story of early Galveston, and then they tell a story of a woman's life in that particular time period of the 1840s. Not an easy life, and she was an interesting person anyway, so her life. We were fortunate that she was very literate, so that when she wrote her letters, they were easily understood and gave us a whole kind of like they ended up reading more almost like a narrative, like a story of hers, a life story, I guess you could say.
So before we kind of go into her life story,
Mm-hmm.
I really believe I think if you could elaborate how you tripped on her, because it wasn't a situation where you went to the library and said, wow, I'm going to look up Lucy Parker Shaw. Can you talk a little bit about that story in the library? And because I think it's a very powerful fated meeting. Does that make sense? Between you and Lucy. So how did you get to those letters? I mean, did you have a plan to do it? What happened?
No, actually, I was doing something other research that I was doing for a school paper. You know, you got to do a lot of writing there when you get a history degree. So I was actually in there doing something. After a while, I got bored with that and kind of ran into a dead end. So I actually started going through their I mean, Rosenberg at this time still had an old card, catalog, where you open the little doors and you
I
look at the
remember.
cards, everything that they have. And I was I knew that one of my relatives, I knew that my great-great-great-grandfather somehow was named Shaw. That's all I knew. So actually, I was kind of bored. And I just went through there to look through the Shaws and saw what the library had for him, which was not much. But then there was also a Lucy, and I really didn't know who she was. And so I decided to pull those. Actually, I was kind of goofing off and doing some genealogical stuff on the side. So Lucy, and I hate to say this in a way, but she was my great-great-grandfather's first wife.
Wow.
So, she's not, by the way, related to me outside of that fact.
Wow. Well, it's just so powerful. I think, we always feel like some of us feel like our previous ancestors guide us. And I have no doubt that she was probably tapping you on the shoulder and leading you to the card file. Hence, here's her life being brought. So she's very interesting. And I think what I compare it to, even though Anne Frank, the Diary of Anne Frank, was very powerful, still what she wrote was very powerful in a way as well. It was politically charged, and we just kind of came out of the State of the Union, so that's the interesting. So can you talk a little bit about what her interests were and what she wrote about?
Oh, good grief. Well, all of her letters, by the way, that I found from Rosenberg, and then one other letter that I found from another relative of hers, a relative of hers that lives in New York. Basically, what I found out was that she was highly educated, and I did some more research on her to try to fill in the gaps as to who actually she was, because when people write letters, like that to someone, they're not telling you everything about themselves. And so I found out about her father. Her father was a well-known attorney and historian from this little town in Maine. That's where this couple was from. They were from Maine. They were Mainers. And that he had given her a really good education. Both of his children were very educated, and he made certain that they were just like him. I read some of his things, and he was a very educated man. And so he made certain that Lucy was educated as well. It's one of the things that kind of attracted me about her. She meets this guy evidently, and they leave Maine in the winter of 1838 and decide to come to Texas. We don't know exactly why. Texas was a republic. It was an independent country. She wasn't going to another place in the United States, and they weren't. And over the years, over the following 12 years of her life that we get to follow her, you find out that she had many varied interests in her life. She was interested in horticulture. She was interested in education because she helped start a school in Galveston with Gail Borden, where she taught children, which only makes some bit of sense. Medicine, I think she talks a lot about doctors and things like that. As you can well imagine, if you were born in that age, medicine and physicians, it's all a mystery. It's a mystery to the doctors, most of what they run into. Okay, but she was you could tell from the letter she was fascinated by doctors. She has a number of them. She was also very interested, like I said, in the horticulture thing. She wanted to beautify the place where she lived because she describes the island as being very barren. There had no trees on it. It was nothing but a prairie. Nothing like Maine. Nothing like Maine, which is very beautiful and green and flowery. That's not where she was sent. So she tries to turn it into that. She's constantly sending for seeds and plants and stuff like that to be sent to her so she can see if they'll grow or whatever. She's interested in politics and political things because they're in the middle of a very violent political state. It's just barely hanging on, this Texas place. And so she's very interested in Texas politics, United States politics, and she talks to her mother about that. You know?
Well, let's keep it there because, finding out what she writes about is extremely powerful, especially with the Republic of Texas going on, and it was a hotbed of political moment in history.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can appreciate that as we're going through, kind of similar it gives you a good feeling to know it's not just 2020.
Oh, no.
That this is stuff that's been going on for a while. So very interesting. Well, what we're going to do, we're going to take a break to our sponsors. And I want to come back because we're going to learn about what was going on with Lucy Parker Shaw. We're talking to the very talented James Valentino, the writer of Maine to Galveston, Republic of Texas, The Life and Letters of Lucy Parker Shaw. We'll be back.
The 5th Annual Authors Marketing Event is coming to Granbury, Texas, July 24th through the 27th. Join us and learn from the professionals how to properly market and sell yourself and your books. Go to ame.authorsmarketingguild.com for all the details. That's ame.authorsmarketingguild.com.
I'm Rox Berkey.
And I'm Charles Brakefield. We're award-winning co-authors, Brakefield and Berkey, of the Enigma book series. There are 10 books in the series, with book number 11 planned for release in January 2020.
Each story has a central technology focus ranging from identity theft to cryptocurrency and now AI wars. These adult techno thrillers pit cyber good guys against cyber thugs across the darknet.
In our world, technology is today's weapon of choice. You can enjoy ebook format, paper, or Audible. We want your feedback.
Until the next story, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, hello there, my friends. My name is Randy James, independent voiceover producer in the Dallas, Texas area, available to write and record a 30-second commercial, much like the one you're hearing right now. It's a great way to help increase awareness and exposure to your book title. It's easy to do. Simply call me and we'll brainstorm on a few ideas, and in a few hours, I'll whip something up and send you a digital file ready to use. Remember, call or text me, Randy James, at 214-762-1942.
Hello, I am the author and poet Denise Bryson. I am the author of The Things That Cross My Mind, Love's Reality, both in book and audio form. I am also noted as one of the best poets of 2011. I have 2 new projects coming up. One is the Blinky series, where Blinky tells us all about our coins and our bills for our children. I also have a book coming out called Say Ye. It's quotes from Denise Bryson, just inspirational and that will help you along the way.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
Welcome back. My name is Shanalee Sharboneau. I'm the host this evening for Indie Beacon Radio. We've got the very interesting James Valentino. He is the author of the book, The Letters of Lucy Parker Shaw, From Maine to Galveston, the Republic of Texas. So again, we were just discussing politics back then. Keep in mind, Texas was trying to be an independent country. I learned all this good stuff. Or at least brought it back from previous memory. Literally, the test was today. So, and people were very passionate about what was going on and how they felt about Texas and Mexico and the United States. Can you talk a little bit about what she wrote and her, her views? Because whether you agree with them or not, they were so extremely interesting and in depth.
Yes, well, one of the themes of the book, I guess you could say, because I added a little afterword and I have a forward, and I explain between the letters what a little bit is going on. Much of it, I got an education myself from researching what she was talking about. I didn't understand myself everything. Is that when they land here, the Republic was still not firmly established. It's very tenuous. There are still invasions from Mexico. They're still worried about a naval invasion from Mexico. Mexico's going to invade the island, things like that. In the meantime, she also described the political and the economic conditions of the island. You get the idea from her letters that they're very promising. They think economically very promising. Her husband is very political. And so he very quickly becomes involved in the politics of the city. He was the first alderman from the 4th Ward in Galveston. They hold some of the first elections in their hotel they run. And so she's all involved in her husband's business. You get the idea in many ways that perhaps she insinuates she's actually a little bit more talented in these areas than her husband is. If you kind of read between the lines a little bit on occasion. But in all this political trouble, then she has her own life to live. Of course, life intervenes in everything. And so she has to deal with what's going on in her daughter's life, her husband's life, life and death that goes on. That is also in all of her this whole narrative.
You have
to day-to-day struggle to survive.
Yeah. And you have to appreciate the fact that, I think as people, we tend to believe or hope that we're evolving, and then we read and listen and learn about her. And as a wife, she still believes she knows what's better for her husband. That hasn't changed.
Right.
She believes better than doctors.
Yes.
That hasn't changed. So even though I'm sure her time was more difficult and as you stated, she probably spent more time trying to survive than we are blessed today not to have to worry so much, knock on wood, on survival. The same challenges still existed. She knew powerful people like Sam Houston, didn't she?
Yes, and I get a feeling that even the letters can't tell all the story because they're just happenstance, and we don't have all of them, obviously, because there's gaps in there. If you understand, there's 2 or 3 year gaps where there are no letters. We don't know exactly what was going on in certain parts of her life. So we don't have the full story of all the different people that she met and knew, but she did rub elbows, her and her husband, with a lot of well-known people in Galveston history. And in Texas history too. The little hotel that they ran, Sam Houston gave a big speech there before the American Civil War, for example, although she was long dead by then. And she talks about Sam Houston and how people in Galveston hated him at the time because of his dismantling of the Texas Navy, which they thought was horrific. But she knew many other people. Some are well known in Galveston history, other people, probably one of the best, a couple of the best known are Asbel Smith, which was the father of the University of Texas and her family physician for a while. And she was also very good friends with Gail Borden, the founder of the famous milk company or whatever, condensed milk company.
Wow.
She was very good friends with him and talks about his garden, his talent for horticulture and all these sorts of things. And she happened to start a school, the school I talked earlier that she helped teach at a school. Well, she started that school with Gail Borden, for example.
Wow. Now, didn't she work alongside the founder of University of Texas, because he was a physician, correct?
Asbel Smith was, yes.
Yeah, and it almost sounded like in a time that it was probably far-fetched a woman could ever operate or even perform as a physician. Doesn't she show signs of having extreme interests and talents and maybe born in this time she would have been a physician? Can you talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. You get the idea from a few of the letters in its particular time period when yellow fever. There's several different yellow fever outbreaks. She doesn't dwell on them though, because remember, she's writing to her mother. And you get the idea throughout the letters that her mother did. Her mother was opposed to her. I don't know if opposed to her marriage, but definitely opposed to her leaving with this man to come to this place because she thought it was a dangerous and unhealthy place. So she doesn't want to. She doesn't want to feed that fear, her mother's fear. She always downplays these things like yellow fever outbreak. But no, they're definitely there, and she actually talks about helping Dr. Smith in some of his investigations into yellow fever, and she talks about how he recommended cleaning up the dump in Galveston because it bred mosquitoes, and he had an idea that mosquitoes were spreading it.
That's amazing.
This was about 60 years before that was found out, before that was discovered.
Wow.
So no, she's very intuitive, and she's very good at kind of what would I say, discerning the quacks. There's one part in the book, in one of the letters, where she describes the death of two people who came to her hotel. Her and her husband, by the way, managed the Tremont. The Galvestonians will all know about the Tremont Hotel.
Yeah.
They managed the Tremont. And they had a couple of boarders who died in the place. And she explained that they were Thomsonians, and Thomson was a guy who believed that you can cure any disease by regulating body temperature. And she said that, well, they kind of like killed themselves by believing such nonsense.
Absolutely. And there's a great story how Dr. Smith, she had witnessed how Dr. Smith proved how yellow fever could be transmitted. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, she mentioned in the letter an experiment that he did that is in his book, because he wrote a book about yellow fever well before his death. Actually, Dr. Smith had a nice long life, but she related this experiment where he cut open a person who had died of yellow fever. He opened them up and then dipped 2 fingers in their stomach bile and then licked it.
Could you imagine?
And said, if this is transmitted from human to human, which is what it was thought of, right? You naturally would think, well, it's transmitted by human contact. He said, if that was the case, it will kill me, but it won't kill me.
Wow.
And it won't, because it's not transmitted that way.
Yeah. She must have been pretty brave to witness what she did and survive. Did she live a long life? We know Dr. Smith did. Did she live a long, healthy life?
No, she lived till she was 43. And we don't, suddenly her letters, she stops writing. I think her last letter, I believe, was in 1850 or right toward the end of 1849, somewhere along that way. Mm-hmm. And she died a few months later. I think she died 3 or 4 months after the last letter that she wrote. We do not know why. I've tried in several different avenues to find what she died of, but I've never been able to find her cause of death yet. Wow. It's out there somewhere in Maine or somewhere has something that will tell us. We do know that she was writing at a year or so before her death. Her and 2 of her children, actually, I guess, 2 of her children went back to visit her mother in Maine for one last time. And she had stopped in New Jersey to talk to a doctor. So I assume that something was wrong with her, but she doesn't say what it was.
Wow. Well, we're gonna leave it there for now, James. This is we want to definitely leave that cliffhanger and all ponder on what could have happened to her. We're going to break to our sponsors. We're talking to the lovely James Valentino, writer of From Maine to Galveston, the Republic of Texas, the life and letters of Lucy Parker Shaw.
Thank you for watching or listening to Indie Beacon Radio. Our sponsor, IndieLector.store, is the only bookstore that pays authors their fair share for book sales. Help authors to succeed and enjoy a great book by supporting them at IndieLector.store. Enjoy a 10% discount with coupon code SHOPPER20 at IndieLector.store. Coupon valid until December 31st, 2020. That's IndieLector.store, coupon code SHOPPER20.
What started as a love letter to her son has become an international love letter for all parents to their children. Now you can read acclaimed author Shanalee Sharboneau's story to your children. When her son was very sick, she calmed him by singing her own song to him. She turned that song into the book, My Mama Loves Me, I'm Her Little Boy. She wrote 3 more magical books for all parents and kids 6 and under. Available at Indie Lector, Amazon, and all local and national outlets.
We Fiction is a fun, fast-paced writing contest for any author team to create a book based on what readers submit for plot, characters, locations, and even plot twists. Learn more about this unique contest at wefiction.dearindie.org.
Authors Marketing Guild is a membership-owned organization designed to help authors succeed and learn how to better market and sell themselves and their books. Join us at authorsmarketingguild.com and receive so many benefits you'll wonder why you didn't join sooner. That's authorsmarketingguild.com.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
We are back. We are talking to author James Valentino. Welcome back, James.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm intrigued. I mean, especially after having to cram last night for a 4th grade test.
Okay.
I'm going to get this book because, what's amazing is we talk a lot about, the pride of Texans and it isn't until you kind of get sparked by remembering, the sacrifices and what people actually really went through. And I so believe her letters give such amazing insights to understand, really at a critical time of that level of turmoil, how she was a woman, just like we are today, fighting with doctors, fighting with politicians, fighting her with her husband, or trying to at least state her case. So where can they buy this book?
The book is on Amazon. I have it on Amazon. I don't sell very many books on Amazon, but I do have it on Amazon. I do have a website. I think it's jamesvalentinobooks.com, and you can order the book online there, or just to email me, jgval929 at AOL.com. Just email me and I'll send you a book, either which way. I also have some little local shops down here. Sullivan's Pharmacy sells the book for me. And the bookshop in Galveston, it's at the Galveston bookshop.
Oh, interesting. And do you have anything special planned, or is there any exciting events coming up in your world?
Well, as it relates to this particular book, no, not really. I have written a novel, but so if anyone is out there who knows a good literary agent, I'm having a hard time moving it, getting someone interested in it. It's a type of book that I don't think I could sell myself. It's a novel.
Sure.
And it's another kind of historical fiction, or fiction that's history, or something like that. I have several of those in my head, but I just can't get the wherewithal to do it. Yeah. This one I really liked because I thought that after reading the letters, I liked the idea of bringing, and I think this is how I view history sometimes, at least at this level, is I like the idea of bringing her back to life. She was a hidden person who died a long time ago. No one knew anymore who she was or what her life was like. And so I think by writing the letters and explaining a little bit about her and her husband's life at this time period, I kind of like resurrect her a little bit. I don't know if that makes any sense. But there's some people's lives that deserve to be deserve to be retold or kept alive. And she's been dead for a long time, but I got this idea that maybe she should be brought back to life in a way.
You know, that's a very honorable thing, because, you know, we can't learn from history. We'll repeat history, obviously, if we can't learn from the ones that have already gone through it. And she writes these letters that are very powerful. You know, I'm sure, just like all the other individuals that wrote letters in their history, just thought it was, you know, as she thought, just writing it to her mother. But because she did so, and they have been preserved, you know, she's a very powerful woman. Post her death, maybe during her life, we don't know. But I so appreciate the fact that you've done this and brought not only her to life, because she's important, but history back to life. And you know, and it's good to know somebody's true experience, not what you read in the history books necessarily, but their experience and through their eyes.
Yeah.
So for that, I can't thank you enough, James. Really appreciate the interview tonight. Definitely go out and get this book. It's something to be, especially as a Texan, a very proud Texan. I really want to delve further in it, and I can promise you that it will reactivate your passion for our history, or even if you're not a Texan, understanding of those powerful figures and her in that moment, and she deserves that accolade. We are talking again to James Valentino, the author of From Maine to Galveston, the Republic of Texas, The Life and Letters of Lucy Parker Shaw. Thank you, James. You have a good night, and everybody.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you, and Alan. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website.
Indie Beacon Radio with hostess Shanalee Sharboneau. Indie Beacon Radio is produced by B. Allen Bourgeois for Authors Marketing Guild LLC, copyright 2020. Voiceover by Randy James, Lydia Bello, and B. Allen Bourgeois. To be a sponsor of the show or for more information, please email us at info@authorsmarketingguild.com. To be interviewed for the show, please complete the form at radio.authorsmarketingguild.com. Music Always Rejoice by Ramcord